In July, we returned from our honeymoon. There are also a lot of queries online regarding Daystar's $100,000 purchase price. Yes, that is what I was going to ask you. No way, to put it another way. Daystar did not have to pay for our trip. They paid for our honeymoon. Well, that's just another lie, isn't it? You publicly declared that their connection was of the Lord when you visited Daystar. Before you do that, you need to speak with Lisa and get her version of events. It's unclear to you if Doug told you the entire tale or just a portion of it. Hi there. Let's discuss what happened throughout that meeting. Why wasn't it merely a furious dispute that we heard? It demonstrated a very concerning aspect of how leaders, especially in Christian contexts, can distort statements, disregard facts, and prioritize their own interests over doing the right thing. Let's start by examining Jonathan Lamb. You haven't even spoken to Doug's ex-wife Lisa, so how can you claim that this relationship is divinely inspired? Was a straightforward but impactful query. That query isn't a ruse to catch someone. It makes sense. It's all right. The Bible mentions it. Proverbs 18 verse 17 states, "The first person to speak in court sounds right, until the cross-examination begins." This suggests you should not pass judgment on someone before hearing their entire tale. Jonathan instructed Jimmy Evans to just get both sides. Yes, Jonathan, I have a lot of experience. There is a noticeable difference. I could have determined whether he was telling the truth in 5 minutes after speaking with Doug and Joni. That's because I know how to communicate with him. Additionally, he provided flawless answers to every issue I posed to him during our conversations. He never denigrated Lisa or treated her disrespectfully. He's skilled at it, though. He's the greatest when it comes to interacting with people. He diminished his humanity. He knows what he should say. It's funny, because I'm simply a thing you created in this universe. Doug exists. He is soulless. His sibling is not a Christian. He is not forgiven by us. He is not exactly the same as Christ. He's real. You seem to have robbed him of his humanity. He is a professional worker. He could see that he was attempting to win the heart of a grieving widow. I'm speaking with Doug on the phone and asking him personal things. He responds to each and every one of them in a manner that reminds me of how someone who has experienced long-term abuse has repeatedly answered the same query. That's number one, then. Second, I spoke with others and probed them. I won't reveal who I spoke with, but I did ask them questions and received responses regarding their relationship. Lisa and I also had a few encounters. When Grace asked Lisa what she would have said, I knew what she would have replied since we had discussed it when we met the other day. This made me glad because I had spoken to her, him, and other people. And just as Doug mentioned, it would have taken an additional 6 months. In Lisa's words, I tried to make things better between us. But what did Jimmy Evans do? He hardly said anything else. We should have greater faith in Jimmy's judgment than in evidence, facts, or first-hand recollections. I didn't need to talk to Lisa because I've been doing this for a long time. I could tell in 5 minutes if Doug was lying. That is a serious warning sign. You could say, I've been around long enough that I don't need to be held accountable. No matter how long someone has been in ministry, they will go to any lengths to uncover the truth when it comes to their reputation, marriage, or witness. That is haughtiness, not knowledge. Let's examine Jimmy's words in more detail now. He claimed that Doug had never humiliated Lisa, and that he knew the answer to every query. Let's face it, though, Doug is a television personality, a public speaker, and a licensed psychologist. It goes without saying that he is a skilled speaker. That's an important point to make. If someone sounds convincing, that doesn't mean they're saying the truth. Jonathan even brought that up when he said, but he's a pro. Why does Jimmy answer that way? It's not right. He goes on an intense rant about how Doug was treated like an object and not a person. To be clear, no one should be treated badly, but where was that same kindness for Lisa? Instead, Jimmy talks endlessly about how he talked to some people, but he won't say who he spoke to. He claims to have met Lisa a few times, but he says they never really discussed the split, even saying, "I know what Lisa would have said." This is not only reckless, but it's dangerous, as Proverbs 15 verse 22 states, "Plans fail because they don't have advice, but they succeed because they have many advisors." Jimmy didn't hear many people. He only listened to Doug Weiss, who then approved a move that affected many lives and now jeopardized the credibility of an entire ministry. Jonathan also brings up the fact that Lisa is still attempting to make peace in the fictionalized version of her response, saying, "Wouldn't it have been the most godly thing for Doug to try to make peace?" That's a very important point. I have no doubt that God detests divorce, Malachi 2 verse 16, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. It should only be done as a last resort, and not as a means of marrying the president of your ministry network. Remember that Doug Weiss made his reputation by helping people get married, teaching them how to stay together in marriage until it was time for him to move on. He then jumped ship and now claims that even God told him it was time. That's not being responsible, that's spiritual trickery. Jimmy's role was to bring knowledge, insight, and the truth to the situation, not to fill in for Doug. He was more of a public relations guy than a spiritual counselor, and that breaks my heart because when Christian leaders don't hold each other accountable, it hurts everyone's faith, not just their own. Instead of listening to one man's thoughtful response, Jimmy should have been humble and talked to Lisa. As Jesus tells us in Matthew 18 verse 16, he should have sought out multiple witnesses and slowed down instead of hurrying to bless a marriage that had been hurt and was still hurting. At this point, a man who once taught that marriages could be healed is at the center of a scandal, and the people who are standing up for him should have been standing up for the truth. Don't be fooled by labels, years of experience, or how someone looks in public. What matters is how deeply you seek the truth. We're still talking about this, so thank God for people like Jonathan Lamb who have the courage to speak up and don't just agree or beg the question. One thing is certain, though, we can't remain silent when powerful people lie about things that are important to us: honesty, the name of Jesus, and ethics. Ephesians 5 verse 11 says, "Don't take part in the useless works of darkness. Instead, call them out." So I have to work with the people in front of me, the information I have, and the experience I have. Yes, but trust is what it all boils down to. Rachel said something nasty about you, Susie, the other day. Well, Susie wants to say something, and she trusts you more than anyone else at this table. I don't care. The best thing about my age is that I don't care. Well, I think my life is pretty good. You can either believe what I say and trust my experience. I won't market myself, and I won't fight back, but I will say that this isn't the first or 31st time I've done this. We both know that talking to Lisa could have slowed things down by 6 months, but would that have been a bad thing when we're all asking questions? Okay, I understand. But everyone is worried about adult children getting married again after a death. I'm telling you that I give you grace for it, but I've been through worse things than you, so I know what you're going through. But we need to consider this. I'm not going to talk to Lisa. I'm not going to defend the fact that I didn't talk to Lisa. All right, but what I mean is, would it be the worst thing if it slowed down for 6 months, if all of these people's children were questioning the marriage? Your fear is different. No, it won't alter the Bible texts. It won't make a difference. No, but again, what if there was a chance that Lisa might return? Christ. No, I'm not kidding. If you two could get back, wouldn't that be the best thing that could happen? However, I gave everything I had to make that happen 1,000 times over, and it broke my heart for her to not do that. All right, I gave it my all, and then you said, "Oh, we'll just keep doing it." All right, I understand that. All right, I gave it my all. Yes, that is intense because I've been ignored for 30 years. I cried, prayed, and tried endlessly. All right, this isn't going to work. Are you going to act scared? You're not afraid of me. What you said made me feel a little uneasy. When I do something, he acts that way. You're saying, "Doug, damn it." I'm not saying that. That would have been the most honorable thing to do in the eyes of the Lord, right? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Being mistreated is not a sign of honor. Being ignored is not a sign of honor. Okay, but I've been through a lot of terrible pain. I have no guilt before my God, who has never abandoned me during this process, and has worked miracles to help me get out of it, okay? You're telling me to get beaten up at home and not care because you're a Christian, right? No, but can God change your mind? Could she change? Jonathan, I pray that you never have to go through the pain he has. I understand. You don't, though. Can people change? You don't understand. I understand that you haven't lived long enough, but I want to point out that we serve a big God who has the power to change and mend broken marriages. That's what Daystar is all about, and it's the best thing that could happen here. It's wonderful, but we shouldn't be there. I know that she can change. We call him Angry Birds because he used to play the game, and he won't let go of it until he fully understands. We're thinking about this. That's okay. We need to know. She doesn't want to. Can I just tell you something about Jonathan, so you don't get the wrong idea about him? Every time we fight, even at 3 or 4 a.m., I beg to go to sleep, but he won't let me. He needs to change because God told him to. It's not like he doesn't believe you. It's not, all right. I went to my office and sat down. Many people travel from other states. Over the last 30 years, I've been a part of thousands, maybe even 5,000 marriages, and some of them die right in my office. All right, they die right there. Because it's not possible. Sometimes it's not possible. God doesn't always heal. Yes, I do. You have free will. She has the option to do it. God doesn't always go against what other people want. He won't stop you from cheating if you decide to do so. Will he now snap? Yes, of course. Will we all break? All right. Still, he won't stop free will. Having a will not to love. You don't believe this because you haven't been through it. Additionally, you're a really nice person, right? You're so good that you wouldn't do that. You're love, just like your mom. All right? Well, but some people choose not to love. That's crazy, you know? I don't think there are people like that, so that's why. Yes. That means you need to trust. All right. All right. I've written. Jonathan's question was straightforward and reasonable. Would it have been so bad to take a 6-month break and speak with Doug's ex-wife Lisa? It's easy to understand. That's smart. That shows respect. That's exactly what the Bible says we should do when we have to make a decision that will affect other people's lives. Proverbs 18 verse 13 states, "It is shameful and stupid to talk without first hearing the facts." What does Jimmy Evans say, though? I'm not going to talk to Lisa. I won't say anything to defend my decision to not speak to Lisa. Hold on, you're making a big call to bless Doug's marriage to the head of a major Christian network, but you didn't even bother to listen to the other side of the story? Jimmy Evans hides behind his experience, as if being in ministry for a long time makes him not need to be held accountable anymore. That's not smart, that's being arrogant. He says it bluntly. You can trust my judgment or keep fighting. That's not being a spiritual leader, that's deceit, it means. Do what I say, or you're the problem. It gets worse when he talks about himself. Jonathan doesn't have enough life experience to understand. he says. Really? Were we being kicked out of the group because they are young, or because they are asking difficult questions? In 1 Timothy 4:12, Paul tells Timothy, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young." At that moment, Jonathan was setting an example by asking people to be honest, open, and do what was right. But at the same time, Jimmy acts as though his years of experience are an excuse for not being accountable, which is extremely risky. Now, let's talk about Doug Weiss, because wow, that whole thing went south when Jonathan gently brought up the idea of getting back together with Lisa. He became irate, said he gave it his all, and turned the entire situation into a personal attack. Yes, Doug claims he wasn't loved or cared for years. If that's the case, that's sad. The problem is that you can't just believe what someone says without hearing both sides. That's not how truth works, and that's not how God's kingdom works. Doug continues by saying that God did amazing things for him after he left the marriage, but the real question is, does God work through divorce in ways that contradict his word? Because God dislikes divorce, Malachi 2 verse 16, and wants to fix things, not make things easier. Jonathan gets right to the point when he asks, "Wouldn't it be better for God if Lisa changed and this marriage improved?" That's the proper question. After all, that's what we preach every Sunday, that God can restore broken things and give life to dead places. Why do Jimmy and Doug act as though God cannot improve his situation? Doug says that being mistreated is wrong, and he is right. However, no one told him to stay in harm. Jonathan wanted to know if God's power could still make peace. Allowing abuse to occur is not the same as believing that it can be fixed. A significant change. Instead of having a calm, open conversation, Doug becomes defensive and claims that Jonathan is afraid of him and acting that way because of who he is. He keeps putting down the pain card to keep people from talking, but guess what? Pain isn't a reason for pride. It's unfortunate that Jimmy, Joni, and Doug aren't considering the people who are watching, the people who follow, the people in the church, the broken couples they once helped. Why should they fight for their marriage if Doug didn't? It's not a good reason to discard years of lessons about fighting for marriage. And it's still not a good reason to marry someone who runs the same ministry site as you. However, Jonathan understands. I love his question. Would it be so horrible if we slowed down? Well, that's intelligent advice. It's Susie Lamb's turn to bring something beautiful into the room as well. She says that Jonathan isn't being rude. He just needs time to think things through and understand them. That's not being weak. That's a good thing. He is struggling because he knows that lives and stories are at stake. He is taking responsibility for it. Counselors pay $1,000 to learn about it because they see it. They wouldn't buy something if they didn't know how to choose someone who wouldn't love it. I'm sorry if you think it was wrong, but if you think it's right, that's fine with me. God is the judge. Just I. But trust that's not a choice. Did I really give it my all? A lot more than most people could ever do. So no, there isn't an answer. There never was one. It wasn't on the desk. The judge comes and doesn't consider the 36 years that he tried, but wait, here's the thing. Doug, here's the thing. He doesn't have any filters to understand it. She gets it now. He still doesn't get it. No, I get it. I'm taking it in. It's the same thing you've been saying the entire time. Really persistent. Honestly, very strong. This is something I think I have to deal with, but look at this. This is good. For example, we need to have this conversation in public. Because people are. I won't reveal Lisa just yet. We won't harm his family, and neither will I. We won't make her look worse than we already did. That's why I took it down. For her. Do you want to know why I took that video? I need to know why. Yes, I did take it down. For her. It felt too open, so she took it down for Lisa. And where? That wasn't the main point. It wasn't the spirit of it. All right, I'm not going to hang out with her. I wasn't asked to take it down. I'm not going to ask questions that worry me. You must mean that I'm feeling bad. Since you are, I'm not scared. I'll find out for myself. But what you should keep in mind, and I hope you can convey to your employees and your children, well, they'll be your children, to your sisters, please, Lord, they have 2 children each, but to your family, is that Doug will die for you. He won't? I think it would be wonderful if you discussed that with them. Or they need to be here at the right time. You will. They're not ready yet. However, this is what you took away from the meeting. Doug won't tell everyone about his life, but he's also not revealing your sin to you. As I walk, I feel certain. I trust some of the Christian people who shared their darkest secrets with me. You will never know. Of course I'm not. All right. How about that? You ask. You must have tried something a few times, but I will never. I'm never going to. Sometimes. No way. It's all kept under wraps. I'm very sure of myself. I'm not trying. But I'll never get better. I'm never going to. All right. So when you leave, you should know that you met a guy who will stay with me regardless of what your family says, okay? I'm not going to find anything either. I'll see all your sin. All right, I already do. At last, you won't have to deal with what? Important. I'll see your sin, and you'll see ours. Do you know what I think? The kids will eventually realize that we're happier together, as a couple than about any of the other things they bring up. The things God has told me to do won't change. That's my responsibility, and I won't duck it. Don't make fun of it, but it's wonderful that he has someone who loves him as much as I do. The truth is that Jimmy Evans didn't lead here well, and Doug Weiss didn't answer with humility. We learned from Jonathan and Susie how to seek the truth, care about doing what is right, and believe that God can still fix what seems broken. Don't be like the person who says, "Just trust me because I'm older." Instead, be like the person who says, "Let's seek God together even when it's hard." We get along great, except when it comes to family and kids. Ultimately, it's about telling the truth, not just about one marriage, one man, or one organization.